Virtual orchestration is an incredibly exciting and fulfilling art form. It's a wonderful way for you to hear your music come together piece by piece, and as it develops, it starts to create this beautiful piece of music that you were originally envisioning in your head. The main problem a lot of composers encounter along the way though is the lack of a process or a step-by-step framework. So in this video, we'll go over 4 very simple steps that you can follow in order to take your initial composition all the way to a polished final master. Let's get into it. So when it comes to virtual orchestration, the first thing we must start with is a solid sketch. Now, that might seem really obvious, but a lot of people will actually bypass this. In my experience, a lot of my students in my communities, in my pro coaching programs, they do a lot of orchestration right off the bat. They might have an idea in their head and they instantly go open their DAW, take their template of hundreds of tracks and start orchestrating right away. The problem that this presents though is that you don't have a stable skeleton of your musical piece to start with. A sketch really only needs 2 things. It needs your melody and it needs your harmony. Now that implies that you do have the rhythm put in there as well, right? Like you probably have the harmony playing chords along a certain time signature, and you have the melody playing on top to outline the main theme. And that's really all you need in order to start orchestrating. You just want to make sure you have your essential ideas laid down first. Having that piano sketch, I usually use a piano. You can also use a harmonica, you can use a guitar, you can even use ensemble string patches, it doesn't really matter. But as long as you have something that outlines your themes, your harmonic progressions, and your rhythm, those are the 3 core elements of music making that really make up a lot of Western music. So make sure you have your sketch to start with. After the piano sketch is laid in place, then we move on to the melodic instrumentation. Now, if you don't have a melody in your piece of music, that's totally fine, but what you want to do is focus on orchestrating the highest priority instruments first. So usually for me, that would be the melody. Let's say I'm orchestrating a pop song. Well, typically, if I know that the voice is going to be the center of attention, then I'll probably lay down a scratch vocal track first as sort of like a demo piece, so that I can listen to it, understand where the core element is going to be for the entire song, and then start to add instruments around that one at a time. The reason why this is important is because you don't want to be spending your time orchestrating little things and flourishes that honestly don't even matter before you have the skeleton laid down first. So just like the piano sketch where you focus on the melody, the harmony, the core components, we do the exact same thing with our first step of orchestration. We focus on the highest priority instruments. Typically that will be the things the audience will focus on the most, being the voice or the lead instrument, maybe that's a lead cello playing a solo melody, or the violin section playing a high melodic line. Whatever it is that you want to draw your audience's attention to, I would orchestrate that first. And after that's laid down, then you move down to the harmonic or background textures little by little. So it's more so still thinking about the melodic and harmonic hierarchy, just like in the sketch, but here we're just applying that to orchestration. So orchestrate the melodic elements, maybe that is just a violin high line, but then you have the violins too playing an octave below. Maybe the violas are playing counter melodies underneath, and the cellos are then playing counter melodies as well. The basses are outlining the harmonic structure. But notice how we worked down from the highest priority instruments first down to the less important ones afterwards. If you follow this method, you will have a very good foundation for the rest of your arrangement. When you polish at that final 10%, at least you have the standard melodic instrumentation or the highest priority things laid down first, and the supporting instrumentation laid down afterwards. A little bonus tip as well, I typically orchestrate by sections, like the intro, then the A section, then the B section, rather than choosing one instrument and orchestrating it for the entire piece. And because this is a question I get quite a lot in my pro composing group, Chris's Inner Circle, and also in my virtual orchestration summit cohort that I host with Ryan Leach, people ask often, do you orchestrate one section at a time? Is it a more effective workflow that way, or should I be, orchestrating the flute for the entire track first, and then the oboe for the whole track, and then the violins and so on? And while there is no right or wrong answer, I tend to find that orchestrating by section, like let's say starting with the intro, as I hear that intro come together, and I play that intro from start to finish, hearing the whole arrangement, it gives me that motivation and that energy, honestly, to want to make that A section even better. And then once the A section is developed, I listen from the intro to the end of the A section. I'm like, wow, that's sounding pretty good already. Let's now move on to the B section, then maybe the C section, and then return of the A section, etc. So working section by section is a really fun way to orchestrate, at least for me. Whereas when I'm doing a piano sketch, I tend to compose it from start to finish if possible. So maybe I am writing the A section first, and then I very quickly try to come up with a B section and then finish the piece, because I want to have the entire piece laid out as soon as possible so that I can move on to the orchestration after that. Now moving on to step number 3, this is where we're going to be polishing the final 10-20% of our arrangement. So assuming we already have the core instrumentation laid down, now is where we give it that final polish. Maybe this is with a ton of flourishes, with a ton of ear candy. Whatever you decide is appropriate for your piece of music, this is where we can add that in. For me, this looks like ostinatos. This looks like transition moments, like crescendos, rolls for the timpani, harp glissandi, right? These are all things that help you gel the piece together and just give it that final punch, final push to give it that glossiness, if you will, before you move on to step number 4. And finally, step number 4 is where we move to the mix and the master. So, of course, mixing and mastering is so important, but it's so crucial that we first polish up our orchestration and start from a solid foundation with our arrangement. We don't want to be going through and hearing muffled things in the mix and then thinking that maybe it's an EQ problem or a compression problem when it's actually too much low end in the orchestration to begin with. So this is where the solo button and the mute buttons can become your best friends when it comes to the mix and balancing and everything like that. But basically, mixing is where we take all of our tracks, all of the disparate, separate tracks that we have, and gel them together to a cohesive whole so that the listener can enjoy the entire piece of music from start to finish and really feel like it's taking them on a journey, giving them a really satisfying musical experience from start to finish. Now, a lot of the mix comes down to volume balancing. So again, we have to think about our priority instruments. Maybe it is the vocal. So what I tend to do is I take all of my tracks, I pull them down to the very bottom so that there's no sound coming up when I press play in the session. Then I take my most important instrument, the vocal for example, bring that up to a healthy low level, let's say it's around -15 to -12 dB, and then I start balancing each instrument around that vocal one at a time. So maybe the vocal's up, now I bring up the violins 1 to sit a bit on the left to complement the vocal, then the violins 2, then violas, the cellos, the basses, then I move on to the woodwinds, then the brass, the percussion, the guitars, etc. Basically, I'm rebuilding the mix from scratch so that I achieve a really solid balance that works for most of the mix, most of the track. Of course, this will not be perfect for 100% of the time because the track will most likely have dynamic changes and different instrumentation choices, but it's always a good idea to start with the loudest or the most complex section of your track first, because that will be the place where most likely you have most of those instruments playing all the way through. After you achieve this static balance, then we do the processing, right? So whether you do top-down mixing like I do, or you do individual track processing, then the group tracks, then the stereo bus, you can polish up the sound to really shape the mix to the tone you want. Do you want a brighter sound in your mix? Do you want it to feel warmer and darker? It's completely up to you, but this is where we would address the tone of the mix. And then after your processing is complete, then we have the final master, which is where we bring up the track to a commercial level that meets those standards, that competes with other tracks, some of your favorites on the radio or on Spotify. And it just gives you that final chance to ensure the tone of the mix is exactly how you want it. And this is where reference tracks can be really powerful, by the way. Like, I like to download some of my favorite tracks, drag them into my session, compare them tonally, make sure that the volumes are balanced, but just to see if I'm sort of at the same playing field level as the professional tracks I'm matching. So of course, mixing and mastering is crucial to the composing process, and that's why I left it here as the very end of the process, because after the master, you publish a track, you can upload it, distribute it however you like, and that wraps up the entire process. So just to quickly recap, we have the piano sketch, very important, or really any instrument you want to use for your sketch. Just make sure you have the core musical elements laid down first. Usually for me, that's the melody and the harmony. And then we move on to step 2, which is actually starting the orchestration with the most important elements first. Typically that's the melodic elements, and then I move down to the harmonic or supportive elements one step at a time. Then step 3 is where we add in the final polish for the arrangement. Maybe that's flourishes, ear candy, transition moments, all the things that will give that final push and that final touch of elegance to your arrangement. This is the final 20%. And then we move on to the mix and master, which is step number 4, making sure it all sounds the way you want it to, everything sounds cohesive together, you process it properly so it comes across tonally the way you want, whether that's brighter or darker, and then you finally master it. You can really use any tools for this, like Ozone is a really great one. They have Ozone Elements, which uses sort of an automatic engine to give you a starting point for your master. It's really, really useful. But once your master is finished, then the track is ready to go. You put it out there and you can finally commit to having released that piece of music you worked on for 20, 30 hours. I know that was a lot and there's only so much we can cover in a short YouTube video, but if you did want to see like my complete start to finish process, and watch me do it over the shoulder, I do have a few programs where I do this step by step, like cinematic music creation and virtual orchestration mastery. Like you literally see me walk through step by step, adding one instrument at a time and explaining my whole process along the way. If you're interested in that sort of thing, you can visit my website there for those courses. Otherwise, if you want to check out the sample libraries, like the tools I actually use on a day-to-day basis, and all the libraries I recommend as well, I've left my sample library buyer's guide down below in the description if you want to check that out as well. It's completely free and it's pretty comprehensive. Like I've updated it over the years as well to include the libraries that I personally recommend for you. And I've also included the utilities there too, like how I would use those libraries as well as the pricing, so you know exactly how much you're investing in those libraries. And again, I just want to give it to you as a thank you for watching this video today. So thanks so much. If you want to check out another video, I'll leave it right there to help you with your composing and orchestration, and I'll see you in the next one.